Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or The Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be going in depth into my week number 14 top 30 ranked running backs and tiers. But before we could get into things, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at NotoriousFNTSY. This video is being brought to you guys by DraftKings Sportsbook, who we're going to be talking about a little bit later. So without further ado, let's get into my week number 14, week number 14, running back rankings and tiers. We begin with tier number 1 at the running back position. In my opinion, all 6 of these guys are must starts on the week. At number 1, we have Tractor Cito, Derrick Henry of the Tennessee Titans, going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars at home in Tennessee this week. Now, Derrick Henry is coming off of 2 not-so-hot performances, RB44 last week up against the Eagles and RB20 in week number 12 up against the Bengals, though he is currently the running back number 3 on the season in half PPR. And if we know anything about Derrick Henry, is that this motherfucker runs a train every single time he plays up against one of his division rivals, and he especially despises the Jacksonville Jaguars because normally he puts up prolific numbers up against them. This week, sadly for the Jaguars, Derrick Henry is going to be hungry, he's going to be angry, and he is going to absolutely eviscerate the Jacksonville Jaguars defense. At number 2, we have my guy Josh Jacobs of the Las Vegas Raiders going up against the LA Rams in LA tonight on Thursday Night Football. 4 straight games as a top 10 running back in half PPR and 2 straight games as a top 3 running back, currently the RB number 1 on the season. Now, the LA Rams defense definitely looked a lot better last week, but ultimately this should be no tough task for Josh Jacobs, as I expect yet another big game out of him. At number 3, we have Austin Eckler, Mr. Clean of the LA Chargers, going up against the Miami Dolphins at home in LA, currently the running back number 2 on the season. Last week, him, as well as the whole LA Chargers team, shit the bed up against the Raiders, RB24 on the week. But this week, he gets the Dolphins, and while the Dolphins have one of the best graded run defenses in the NFL, we just saw Christian McCaffrey absolutely destroy the Miami Dolphins run defense, and I think Austin Eckler could easily do the same thing, especially since the Dolphins defense plays significantly better at home, and this game is in LA, so I have high hopes for Eckler in this matchup. At number 4, we have the guy we were just speaking about, CMC, Christian McCaffrey of the Niners, going up against the Bucks at home in San Francisco. Last week, he was the RB number 1, 17 carries for 66 rushing yards, 8 receptions on 10 targets for 80 receiving yards and a touchdown. Currently the RB number 5 on the season. Now, the Bucks matchup definitely is far from a wet dream here. This is definitely going to be a little bit of a tough matchup for McCaffrey, but at the end of the day, you're still rolling him out with confidence. At number 5, we have Dalvin Cook of the Minnesota Vikings going up against the Detroit Lions in Detroit. Completely opposite to Christian McCaffrey, this is a wet dream matchup for Dalvin Cook. I fully expect him to go to pound town on this awful Lions defense. Running back 10 last week up against the Jumbo Jets, RB number 11 on the season. This seems like it is the recipe for success here. Sugar, spice, and everything nice for Dalvin Cook up against the Lions. At number 6, to close out tier number 1, we have Ramondre Stevenson of the Patriots going up against the Arizona Cardinals in Arizona on Monday Night Football. RB number 22 last week up against the Bills, currently RB number 9 on the season. Now, the Patriots look like a bunch of chickens with their head cut off going up against the Patriots last week, but I think this week up against the Arizona Cardinals, assuming that Damian Harris is going to miss, it wouldn't shock me at all if he was the number 1 running back on the week. Next up, we move to tier number 2. This is a little tier. Now, there is not the biggest of gap between tiers 1 and 2, but to me, there was a tier gap in between both of them. Last week, my guy, 9-inch Nicholas Chubb, up against one of the easiest matchups in the NFL for a running back. Shit the bed. 17 carries, 80 rushing yards, 1 target, 0 receptions, 8 fantasy points, RB 32. This week, he gets the Bengals, and if you actually look at the history of the Bengals versus the Browns when Joe Burrow is under center, The Browns absolutely own Joe Burrow. And then, of course, Joe Burrow owns the Chiefs, which is like one of the best teams, if not the best team in the NFL. RB number 4 on the season for my guy, 9-inch Nicholas Chubb. I understand the Bengals defense isn't amazing against the run. They're not terrific either. I do think this game could be a little bit more high scoring. I think Deshaun Watson plays better in this game. So Nick Chubb, RB number 7. At number 8, we have the other running back in this game. Again, we are assuming that Joe Mixon is going to play here. And if he doesn't, Samaje Perine would be up here in tier number 2. He was a full participant in practice on Wednesday, so it would be truly shocking, if I'm being honest with you, if Mixon missed this game. The Browns defense is really bad up against the run, so I think this is a good matchup for Joe Mixon. It was the RB 29 in week 11 against the Steelers, but he did leave that game with an injury, so I'm not going to dog him too much about that. Now we move to tier number 3 at the running back position, beginning with Saquon Barkley of the Giants going up against the Eagles at home in New York. Now Davis was back last week, and they completely locked up Derrick Henry, but I think that's more to do with the game script of the game compared to Derrick Henry really getting bottled up behind the offensive line. I think Saquon Barkley should be solid in this game, but I don't think he deserves to be in the same tier as the other guys ahead of him because of the matchup up against the Eagles. RB number 9 last week up against the Commanders defense that is pretty solid up against the run. RB number 6 on the season. Again, I don't have the highest hopes for Barkley here, but again, would anyone be surprised if Saquon Barkley absolutely shits down the throat of the Eagles defense? The answer is no. At number 10, we have Travis Etienne of the Jacksonville Jaguars going up against the Tennessee Titans in Tennessee. Last week, RB 39 up against the Lions, but that was a game where the game script went completely on its head. Trevor Lawrence gets hurt. He comes back into the game. They got absolutely bitch slapped by the Lions, so that was a bad game for them. I'm not saying that the Tennessee Titans are a bad team by any means, but assuming Trevor Lawrence does end up playing, Travis Etienne should be able to reclaim his spot back inside the top 10, currently running back 18 on the season in half PPR. At number 11, we have Tony Pollard, and at number 12, we have Ezekiel Elliott. We'll talk about them in tandem. RB number 2 last week was Tony Pollard up against the Indianapolis Colts. 12 carries, 91 yards, 3 targets, 2 receptions, 15 receiving yards, and 2 touchdowns. Currently the RB 7 on the season. My only worry for Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott is the fact that the Dallas Cowboys might be laying the hammer, laying the pipe for that ass like they are a plumber to the Houston Texans, and then the Cowboys proceed to, in the second half, bench every single player on the offense. Bench Pollard, bench Zeke, bring the backups in, bench CD, bench Dak, Cooper Rush comes in the game, and then you can't score any fucking points if you're sitting on the bench. But on the same argument here, if the Dallas Cowboys are beating down on the Houston Texans, you would think that Pollard and Zeke probably have a say in that. Ezekiel Elliott, while he is a worse running back, in my opinion, than Tony Pollard, he runs like he's fucking stuck in quicksand. Ultimately, all this guy has done over the last 5 games that he started is be a top 13 running back in fantasy football. RB 11, 10, 8, 13, and 8. Again, while I like to make fun of this guy, they're the Texans. It's an incredibly easy matchup, and I love Zeke in this spot as well as Tony Pollard. I honestly think at this point, Zeke is slightly safer, though, than Tony Pollard. To close out tier number 3 at number 13, we have Miles Sanders of the Eagles going up against the Giants in New York. Now, I talk about Miles Sanders a lot in this team, and it is very simple to understand why Miles Sanders has some down games. It's because they are such a fucking loaded offense. They have A.J. Brown, who absolutely eviscerated his former team, the Titans, last week. They have the Slim Reaper, the Heisman, Devontae Smith. They have Jalen Hurts, who can run the ball at any point. They have Miles Sanders. They have Dallas Goedert, who's coming back next week. They also have Kenny Gainwell. They have a lot of talented players in this offense, so there's going to be some games where Miles Sanders ends up shitting the bed. But the upside weekly for Sanders is what keeps him in this top 12 conversation, because there is always a chance that instead of Hurts maybe running a touchdown, we see Miles Sanders score 2 or 3 touchdowns. He scored 2 touchdowns in week 12, 1 touchdown last week. I think his upside is immense. Obviously, there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen in Philly, but I still think Miles Sanders is a start-worthy player every single week and should be considered potentially as a top 12 running back. I know he's at running back number 13 for me, but I hope you understand the point that I was making. Now we move to tier number 4 at the running back position, beginning with DeAndre Swift of the Lions, going up against the Minnesota Vikings Vikings at home in Detroit. But before we talk more about all the rest of the running backs all the way up to running back number 30 on the week, I would like to give you guys a quick word from our friends and our sponsor of today's video, DraftKings Sportsbook. They've been on your screen this whole entire time. Now, if you're a brand new user to DraftKings Sportsbook and you click on the link in the video description down below or in the pinned comment, they have a great offer for you. If you bet $5 on any sport pregame money line, you will win $150 in free bets if your bet wins. Now, again, if your bet wins. So I would suggest betting on a team that you feel like is going to win. So I'm going to throw it on the screen right now. The best bets for this is going to be on college basketball because they have the biggest favorites. Tonight, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I like Utah minus 1,400 versus Jacksonville State. Now, obviously, nothing is a guarantee, and you can go with whatever pick you want. That is just my suggestion for the week. Bet $5 on Utah, win $150 in free bets as long as Utah wins. And if you live in Maryland, since sports betting just got legalized there, you'll actually get $200 in free bets in Maryland. So $150 if you live anywhere else, $200 if you live in Maryland. Make sure you check out that link in the video description to activate your offer. Back on into things here, we got DeAndre Swift of the Lions going up against the Vikings. Somehow, some way, the Lions are favorited in this game. DeAndre Swift finally was given the opportunity to carry the rock last week. 14 carries, 62 rushing yards, 6 targets, 4 receptions, 49 receiving yards, 1 touchdown, RB number 5 on the week. The Vikings defense is really bad against the pass. They're pretty so-so against the run, but as long as Dan Campbell continues to do what he did last week up against the Jaguars, the upside, the ceiling for DeAndre Swift is legitimately the fucking moon. At number 15, we have the other running back on the Lions, Jamal with 2 A's Williams, going up against the Minnesota Vikings. Now, this man has scored a touchdown in 4 straight games, and he has a total of 6 touchdowns in those 4 games. And Jamal Williams is not just going to magically go away. It's the same thing how I talk about how, hey, Pollard is much more talented than Zeke, but Zeke's never going away. He's never run away. He runs into the game like the fucking Kool-Aid man runs through the brick wall. Oh, yeah, that's what Zeke does. That's the same shit Jamal Williams does, because once they're knocking on the door, it doesn't matter if DeAndre Swift just ran the highlight play of the century where he jukes out the whole defense. The bench comes in. He jukes the bench out as well, like he's playing that Return Man video game they used to be able to play back in the day on the computer. And then, gets to the 1-yard line, then Jamal Williams magically comes into the game and vultures the fucking touchdown. So we can't discredit Jamal Williams' upside either, despite being the running back 26 and 28 over the last 2 weeks. He still has big upside, but I definitely would rather have DeAndre Swift at this point. At number 16, we have James Conner of the Arizona Cardinals going up against the Patriots on Monday Night Football. RB6, 14 and 5 over his last 3 games. I think ranking him anywhere outside of the top 18-ish would be a bit of a discredit towards James Conner. Now, he was absolutely shit at the beginning of the year. RB 17, 40, 35, 29, and 39. But ever since he came back from his injury in week 9, RB 25, 14, and 6, I think he's a really talented player. Situation isn't necessarily the best. The team isn't necessarily the best. The matchup isn't necessarily the best. But I know he is going to see a lot of opportunity. Now we move to tier number 5 at the running back position, beginning with Dameon Pierce of the Houston Texans going up against the Dallas Cowboys in Dallas. Number 18 is Isaiah Pacheco of the Chiefs going up against the Broncos in Denver. And I mentioned that because I had a bit of a hard time seeing who I wanted to put higher, Dameon Pierce or Isaiah Pacheco. I do like Pacheco a ton, but I feel like Dameon Pierce has a little bit more baked in safety. Last week up against the Browns, RB number 21, currently the RB number 16 on the season in half PPR. He is in a bit of a downward spiral over the last 3 games, RB 21, 55, and 46. The matchup up against the Cowboys is incredibly tough against the pass. I do, though, think that Dameon Pierce could get it done running the ball. The biggest problem with Dameon Pierce is that the team doesn't give him enough receiving upside or enough receiving opportunities. 3, 6, 3, 3 targets over the last 4 games. That's just not enough when he is the most talented player on your fucking roster. You need to give the most talented player on your team the fucking football, and it's frustrating that they don't do that. It's also frustrating that Dare Ogunbowale comes in and vultures the touchdowns away. Again, I like Dameon Pierce, but what I'll tell you is at this point in the season, my confidence in him is much lower than it was just a couple of weeks ago. At number 18, again, we have Pacheco going up against the Broncos in Denver. The Broncos' pass defense is A1 like the fucking steak sauce. Their rush defense isn't awful, though. It's not like they're dick cheese against the run, but not as good. RB 11 and 16 over the last 2 games, continuing to get peppered with touches. 22 carries in week number 12, 14 carries in week number 13. It does suck that he doesn't get a lot of receiving opportunities, just 2 and 1 target over the last 3 games, but he has scored a touchdown in both of the last 2 games. Again, the matchup isn't amazing, but Isaiah Pacheco is really fucking good. At number 19, we have Jeff Wilson Jr. of the Dolphins going up against the Chargers in LA on Sunday Night Football. Now, last week, I got a little bit bullish on Jeff Wilson. I understood that he's playing the Niners. The Niners defense is amazing. And I said, you know what? This is a revenge game. Jeff Wilson is running hot. Let's continue to ride on the hot streak. And Jeff Wilson shit the bed so bad that he fucking fell over on a target that was thrown to him and Tua threw a pick. So he fucked the game up too for my Dolphins. But here he gets the Chargers, one of the worst run defenses in the NFL. So, you know in Men in Black, when they have that thing that they point at you and it like fucking erases your memory? Just erase your memory of last week where he had 1 rush for 3 yards, 2 targets for 0 receptions, and he scored 0.0 or 0.3 fantasy points, right? He was fucking awful, abysmal. And Mike McDaniel even acknowledged that they need to run the rock more. Up against a bad Chargers run defense, I expect Jeff Wilson to have taken that L, but like Big Sean, he's gonna bounce back. Last night I took an L, but tonight I bounce back. Number 20, Najee Harris of the Pittsburgh Steelers going up against the Baltimore Ravens at home in Pittsburgh. Tyler Huntley versus Kenny Pickett is exactly the matchup that everyone is elated to watch. But at the end of the day here, this shouldn't be that bad of a game. It is an AFC North rivalry matchup. Back-to-back kind of dud games out of Najee Harris. The Ravens defense isn't the best against the run. I will tell you, though, if 6 teams weren't on bye this week, Najee Harris probably wouldn't have cracked the top 20. At number 21, can you do something for me? We got Latavius Murray of the Broncos going up against the Chiefs. The Broncos offense is so fucking bad. Now, a lot of people on the internet right now, they're talking about Brittany Griner, how, oh my gosh, the U.S. made an awful trade. Well, that trade pales in comparison in terms of being awful compared to Russell Wilson being traded to the Denver Broncos. The Seattle Seahawks literally just bent them over and sodomized their asshole deeply into the night. RB 31 and 30 over the last 2 games for Latavius Murray. The upside is there as he is the RB number 1. The problem is the Broncos don't score enough for me to be able to rank him any higher. At 22, we have Donta Foreman of the Panthers going up against the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle. Foreman is an immensely talented player. The matchup is really solid up against the Seattle run D. The problem is what version of Mono Man Sam are we going to get? Are we going to get the Sam Darnold from week 12 up against Denver? Are we going to get the Sam Darnold from last year at the beginning where he was amazing? Or are we going to see Jets Sam Darnold? We shall see. I think this could be an interesting spot for Foreman as he's really good. 4.5 yards per attempt on the year for Donta Foreman. The problem is the Panthers just really aren't all that good, so it's hard to rank him much higher. Now we move to tier number 6. This is a little bit of a smaller tier. RB 23, we got Rashad with 2A's Whites of the Bucks going up against the 49ers in San Francisco. An incredibly tough matchup. Saw a downgrade in terms of rushing upside last week with only 9 carries, 28 rushing yards, but he still had 8 targets, 6 receptions, 41 receiving yards, and he scored the game-winning touchdown up against the Saints. This matchup against the Niners is fucking hard. It is incredibly hard. And that's why Rashad White's down here at 23. At 24, we have Zonovan Knight. Bam! Knight of the Jets going up against the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo. RB 24 and 13 over his last 2 games. Assuming Michael Carter misses, this week Zonovan Knight should be the running back number 1 yet again. This game is projected to be a little bit rainy, a little bit cold, 39 degrees in Buffalo. In this matchup, it might even snow a little bit. Should be an interesting spot for Zonovan Knight. The matchup, though, up against the Bills definitely is no cakewalk. This should be a tough tougher matchup, so can't really rank Zonovan Knight much higher than I got him. At 25, we have Uncle Lenny. Now, in his return game, he did actually look pretty solid. 10 rushes for 49 rushing yards, 7 targets, 6 receptions, 32 receiving yards, 11 fantasy points, RB 16. Tom Brady was a check down merchant in that game, and I think he's going to do the exact same thing up against the 49ers. So again, not banging the drum for any of these guys, but Fournette is at least start worthy, I guess. Now, tier number 7, the final tier here, running backs 26 through 30. At 26, we have Singletary of the Bills going up against the Jets. Again. Here, when it comes to the Buffalo running backs, I have no fucking idea what is going to happen. It appears that the Buffalo Bills want to actually start running the ball, which is really good. The problem is now they also are trying to use James Cook a ton. Your guess is as good as mine who ends up being the leader in snap count in terms of the 2 running backs. Singletary did score last week, though Zach Moss. You guys remember that guy? James Cook is the number 2 guy who looked better than Singletary, but again, we shall see this week. Was that a fluke? Fugazi? James Cook, or is James Cook really the guy? Number 27, we have Cam Akers tonight up against the Raiders, running back number 7 last week. It would be fucking hilarious. I would literally fall over and probably die of laughter if Cam Akers, after being absolute dick cheese weeks 1 through 12, not wanting to play, wanting to be traded behind a bad offensive line, and then miraculously, he was RB7 last week, he somehow finishes the year as a league-winning running back after everyone cut him who drafted him, and then someone else picked him up, and they win their league. That would be so fucking funny. So I'm rooting for that because of how funny it would be, like how pissed. Imagine if you drafted Cam Akers, you finished in like last place, and now Cam Akers is just top of the charts, top 10 running back every week, and you're like, fuck. Man, I feel like an idiot. Why did I draft him? Why is he so good now? It would be hilarious. And the Raiders defense sucks cock against the run. So this really could be a good game for Cam Akers. At 28, we have James Cook again. What is there to understand about this situation? James Cook outsnapped Mr. Devin Singletary last week and played better. The problem is they're going to use both of them, and when they get on the goal line, it's James Cook, get the fuck out of here, pal. It's Devin Singletary time. It's a very weird situation. RB15 last week. I'm rooting for James Cook, but if I'm being honest with you, I'm not very confident in him, like I said. At 29, we have Wiki DJ Dallas of the Seattle Seahawks going up against the Carolina Panthers. Right now, we are assuming that Kenneth Walker's going to miss. I would be shocked if Kenneth Walker played, and if he did play, he'd probably have to go out there in a fucking wheelchair because that injury fucked him up. RB49 last week. Again, I do think he'll be the leader in the clubhouse, but I don't think it will be by a wide margin compared to Travis Homer, assuming they both play. Panthers defense is a decent matchup, but again, how much do you want to rely on a running back that might end up being in a true 50-50 split committee? At number 30, we have Raheem, the Dream Mostert of the Dolphins, going up against the LA Chargers in LA. No more parties in LA. Hopefully there is a party, though, for the Miami Dolphins. RB number 55 last week up against the Niners. Not a good game. Though he did get more carries than Jeff Wilson, I still do think that Jeff Wilson is the lead back in terms of the two. I love this matchup against the Chargers. You could rank Raheem Mostert a little higher, but I really think Jeff Wilson's going to feast in that game. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you ended up enjoying, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below as well as hitting that like button. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at NotoriousFNTSY. And make sure you check out the offer from DraftKings, again, link down below in the description. Also important to note that fantasy football is ending soon, but that doesn't mean that you have to start playing. If you've never played daily fantasy before, then what are you waiting for? You should go ahead and start playing daily fantasy. And we have a great offer for you at Stochastic. Our NFL 3 days for free. 3 days for free by clicking on the link in the video description down below. And you will receive all of our NFL Stochastic stuff that we have to offer for DFS. NFL DFS projections, ownership percentage, 1v1 tools, lineup generators, top stacks tool, all risk-free with a link in the video description. I won $5,000 on DraftKings last Sunday with a finely crafted lineup using our tools. I used the top stacks tool. I used the ownership, the projections, and fucking sugar, spice, and everything nice. We won $5,000. So if you're new to DFS or you're not new to DFS, maybe you've been playing for a while, use those tools to help you out. They have helped me out a ton, and they've also helped out tons of people around the United States and around the world where you can play DFS, win a bunch of money. So make sure you take advantage of that by clicking on the link in the video description. I love you guys all so much. I hope you have a great rest of your guys' day. And as always, good boy.